Don't leave the path.
Raistlin, we'll be all right. The path is in plain sight, not 10 feet away. Come on, you've got to rest. We all... Look, I don't think this is Darken Wood. According to this map...
You are all fools. This is Darken Wood. As you will see before the night is ended. But as you say, I need rest. However, I will not leave the path.
Ras, join us. Tass is gone for wood, and maybe I can shoot a rabbit.
Shoot nothing. Harm nothing in Darken Wood. Neither plant nor tree, bird nor animal.
I agree with Raistlin. We have to spend the night here. I don't want to kill any animal in this forest if we don't have to.
Elves never want to kill, period. The magician scares us to death, and you starve us. Well, if anything does attack us tonight, I hope it's edible.
You and me both, dwarf.
I didn't cut it, I just picked it up.
The wood's wet.
Great Riverwind, and we need light.
Surely you do not fear children's stories.
No, I just want to make sure that Kinder doesn't rifle my pack in the dark.
Very well. Shadok. There, you have light.
I will take first watch. I shouldn't sleep with the headwind anyway. I once knew a man who did. He never woke up.
We'll watch in twos. I'll take the first watch with you.
Hey, soldiers appearing from the woods.
But they're without force.
Fiery orcs is near. Their spirits.
Ras, no, come back.
Put your swords away. They will do you no good. Only a weapon of powerful magic can harm these.
What are those things? They're grabbing Raistlin. I'll fight the living any day of the week, but not the dead.
What are they doing?
Raistlin! Raistlin!
Welcome to Darken Wood, Tannis.
Pre-recorded in a second-floor guest room filled with tall ales and taller tales. Join a group of grown men intent on discussing the intricacies of fantasy and science fiction. Tim Gilbert Media presents
Dungeons and Dweebs! I think a battle axe got it right to the back of her heart.
Hello, all you dwarves, halflings, and kenders. This is the Dungeons and Dweebs podcast, episode 1, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I'm your host, Bob Tasselhoff, Kendernot III, coming to you with the very first podcast of what will go down in the annals of podcast history as a turning point for quality sci-fi and fantasy literature reviews. But I'm not alone. Across the table from me, I have the Grand High Lord of Pax Tharkian Wastes, Luke.
That's quite the intro and quite the grandiose vision of this podcast, but I'm so excited to finally be here. I have never consumed a bit of nerd culture and not been able to talk to you guys about it for so freaking long. Let's do this. To my left, Klob.
Hi, this is Klob again, your old crabby man. I'm here again, as always, to try to shed some light on the history with some of these kids that we have in the room. And remember, kids, the only way you become an old warrior is by knocking everything down in your path. Across the table for me, I have the large man on campus, the big man in the room, the man with the plan. Paul.
Plan? I didn't know I had one yet, but I guess I'll have to come up with one quick. I'm looking forward to doing this podcast. As Luke said, it was real hard to not have conversations about these books, and we would have to stop ourselves when we were hanging out to prevent us from talking before the podcast.
And if you've listened to episode 0, you have the understanding now that that's what this podcast is going to be. Is basically 4 nerdy guys sitting in a room talking about the fantasy and sci-fi literature that we've been reading, and we've been dealing with or playing or anything like that. And it's the discussions we would normally have. We just decided to record them and broadcast them to the world because we just kind of feel we're that important.
Right. So let's peel back the veil here and let's talk a little bit about how we got this whole thing together. A lot of us, we're all friends here at the table. We work together, and we would find ourselves during lunch having all of these talks about what books and what movies we were watching. And all of us are big fans of listening to podcasts. We are just like you guys out there listening to us. We just sat down one day and said, hey, let's get ourselves a mic and record this thing. So we are sitting in a sweaty second floor room. It is the middle of July. It is hot and sticky, and we are recording this for the love of the game.
Yes. And actually, no, it's not hot outside, but it's raining, and we can't open the window.
So why...
Just to let you know, I may be naked by the end of the brew podcast.
And that would be just fine.
Yes.
All right, so why Dragons of Autumn Twilight? Well, I think I can go into kind of the basics of why we decided to start on this one. All of us kind of have varying crossovers of things we like to do in our own nerd universes. And most everybody at the table are really big role players. I myself am not huge in the role-playing genre. But I have always been attracted to, as a child... I'll have to go back. Go back in the Wayback Machine. Okay, as to how this whole Dragonlance thing got started. Huge reader, would love to go to the bookstore, and there in the bookshelves, I would see just its seemingly endless supply of Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms books. Thought the covers were awesome, always wanted to read them, did not know where to start. This is before the internet. I had no way of looking up what book one was. And so I would just pick out the next Star Wars book and move on. So always I was kind of attracted to these Dragonlance novels. When the group of friends was really into this, I thought, hey, what kind of podcast could bridge the gap here? Give us something all to start kind of common conversation about. Figured, hey, let's do something Dungeons and Dragons. We'll start out with Dragonlance. And from the research, it seems like everybody who is a fan of the series says this is the place to start with the original 3 novels called the Dragons. What do we call this?
Just Dragonlance.
Dragonlance, but this is called the Chronicles. Dragonlance Chronicles.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Dragonlance Chronicles, the first series of 3 books by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss. And so this is where we decided to start.
The Dragonlance Chronicles, distributed by TSR.
Right.
And I have a little bit of a history here, and I had a lot of fun digging into this. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons myself, but I started playing maybe a year and a half ago. We started in version 3.5. I dabble a little bit in version 5 afterwards, and really, so diving back into the history of all this has been so much fun. Going all the way back to the original. It's not even version 1. The original version of Dungeons and Dragons had 3 classes. You were either a fighterman, a cleric, or a magic user. You had 4 classes. You were a human, an elf, a dwarf, or a hobbit.
I remember playing that actual series too, and from going in now and playing over the years, and there's so many things that have come out with class and race and everything else that you can play right now. You guys who just started wouldn't believe that you could make up a character fairly quickly.
Yeah.
with the original series, because you just had that limited of choices of what you were able to do.
Yeah, and it actually, and this, kind of going to my notes here, hold on one second. And even when you were playing the original, I guess I'm telling you something that you already know. But for the listeners, when you're playing the original, it assumed that you knew the rules to the miniature wargame Chainmail. It also assumed that you knew the rules to outdoor survival. So it's like you bought this box set. It wasn't even like the version that we know and love today, where it's you get the 3 books. You bought this box set and just kind of assumed that you knew all these things. And that is actually around the year, it was 1977 to 1979. That is when Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out. Right. And what that means is that is the start of the version that we know and love, where it has your books, your 3 books, your Player's Handbook, your Dungeon Master's Guide, and your Monster Manual. You get these 3 books, you can read these 3 books, and you can play the game. You don't need to know the random board game of chainmail miniature warfare. So this was, the books came out, actually, let me...
And this was kind of a sparking, really, of kind of role-playing. I mean, this is really Gary Gygax, right, is the guy who came up with Dungeons & Dragons?
Yes, the original.
The original, and him and Don Kay are the ones who founded this TSR. It stands for Tactical Studies Rules. It starts in 1973, and really kind of ushers in this whole new genre of role-playing games, which by the time we get to the end of the 70s into the early 80s, I guess we really should talk about it, kind of starts some forms of firestorms of controversy because of perceived ideas of, satanic elements in the game, possibilities of people having committed suicide playing the game. So Dungeons & Dragons was always kind of swirling in the 70s, early 80s with kind of this air of controversy, which again, as a young child in the 80s, only lent its attraction to me.
And it also added to the appeal, too, when you're looking at, how many of us, reading Tolkien, reading Lord of the Rings, reading these things and wanting to go, oh God, I'd love to do that, or I'd at least love to pretend to do that.
Right.
6, 7, 8 years old, and you're out in the backyard beating your brother with a stick.
Right.
And now you can get, as you get older, and you get into the whole mind game aspect of it.
And I will say, talking with people who haven't really heard of Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, just telling them you can do whatever you want in the game, you can see in their eyes and their faces the interest all of a sudden lights up. And just to be reading through some of these books that were based off of that and all of those things is just fascinating.
Right, and I do feel Dungeons & Dragons has carried with it kind of the baggage from the 70s and 80s of that when it initially hit kind of the cultural zeitgeist. From that point on, it's been slowly trying to shed its scaly dragon skin, I guess, and kind of emerge as something different, and it's becoming more and more culturally kind of, acceptable.
It's the one that started it all.
Right.
I mean, and then you go into, different things like I mentioned on episode 0 of, Masquerade, Riffs. They came out with Star Wars.
There's a Star Wars,
Pathfinder. Pathfinder's a very popular one.
Mm-hmm. Right. But this is not necessarily a Dungeons & Dragons podcast. We are going to be reviewing the book. So how do we get to Dragons of Autumn Twilight? And how does a role-playing game company all of a sudden bridge into publishing books? In fact, some people say it's this publishing aspect and other things that maybe brought down the company. It should be mentioned, TSR is no longer publishing anything and went out of existence in 95, 96. So just kind of going back in the Wayback Machine, 1983, TSR splits into 4 different companies as a way to try to, maximize its potential in different segments of the economy. Gygax, the guy who started it, decides to go into the entertainment world and try to get movies made. That kind of falls through, and what ends up happening is the cartoon gets made, which maybe some of us
I'm still a huge fan of the cartoon.
The Dungeons
I
and
love
Dragons.
the campiness of the
It's a Dungeons and Dragons ride!
Yes, I love that though. And just what it was, and I remember watching that. Actually, I've recently rebought the set and rewatched it.
I might have to.
But I mean, it was a commercial aspect, and that was that rinky-dink 80s cartoon was actually what got me interested in. Okay, well, really, what is Dungeons and Dragons? I know that there's another universe or another multiverse, if you will, out there beyond this cartoon that I really love as a 7-8-year-old.
Right.
And what is there out there?
And I'm no expert by any means on the ins and outs of Dungeons & Dragons or even the inside of TSR as a game developer, but from my understanding and from what I've gleaned kind of from researching this, TSR then, and you were talking about the coming of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, right? And what year was that around? 80?
Yeah, about 1977 to about 1979, and this what was this book? Was 1984?
Yeah, 84 is when.
So I mean, it makes sense that was those rules were established, and they're like, well, what do we do? How do we get people into this? So what TSR did was they had Tracy Hickman started designing this campaign. I actually have it in my hand. I was able to find it online.
Yeah.
There's this huge campaign, and it's built up of 16 modules.
Wow.
It is absolutely massive.
Right.
So you have this whole campaign that is out there, and then these books start coming out. And these books, I mean, for the most part, with Dragon's Autumn Twilight, I have Dragonlance Module 1 and Module 2 over here.
Right.
Basically follows the entire book.
Right.
To a T, except for the ending.
Yeah, so let's get into this. This Tracy Hickman guy. So, from my understanding, Tracy Hickman and his wife, Laura Hickman, I mean, what a match made in heaven. I mean, to be married and be able to do this stuff together as a couple. But both of them were into writing these games. Both of them have written their own games. One called Raistlin. I have no idea what that is. The other one called Pharaoh. And they couldn't find a publisher. They published them, I believe, themselves, and then approached TSR with it. And TSR took them up on the offer, and they ended up developing some games that probably people listening might have heard of. One of them called Ravenloft.
Ravenloft, yeah, definitely.
It's a part of this whole Dungeons and Dragons, different realms kind of thing. But anyway, TSR then got this kind of idea. This was all kind of a corporate decision, really. We are going to further push the envelope, to my understanding, of Dungeons and Dragons by, instead of just creating generic characters, we are going to give a storyline that people coming into the Dungeons and Dragons world, you can play one of the characters we've already created. So we're going to write this world called Dragonlance. We're going to populate it with these companions, which the book we have read has. That's who our protagonists are is this group of companions. People can read the book, then they can go to their own campaign and play as these characters.
Yeah, and that's actually in this packet here. You can see what level these characters in the book are, what class they are, and it's super interesting, especially coming from somebody who has played Dungeons and Dragons, read this book, and I had no idea when I was reading this book about any of this. Going back, seeing the actual module for the adventure, and really just getting to see, really connecting those dots of the story and the mechanics of the game.
And I think one of the impetus for doing the story and the novel itself, and then the campaigns within the novel too, it goes both ways. Right. You can read the novel and then want to play as one of the characters, or maybe you played as one of the characters, which was actually the way that I've done a couple of these different things in the past, where you've played at the characters and then all of a sudden you pick up the book and go, oh my God, this was the character I played. I wonder how they made decisions here. And then I think that was really part of the mindset when they were putting this together to try to sell it, was you can go either way. You can start with either one, but you're going to buy both of them.
Right. And it's my understanding that execs were divided on this. There were some of the execs at TSR that loved this idea. There was people who had come out and said this is going to bankrupt it, that for whatever reason people aren't going to accept this whole, that the attraction of Dungeons & Dragons is that you create your own character and this kind of pre-made, read the book, do the character thing. Personally, I think it's a great kind of stepping stone idea. I'm not a player of Dungeons & Dragons, but I feel like this would be a great intro into the game, or a way of furthering your love for the game, or just a little extra flavor. Hey, you want to go out for a different type of food tonight? Go to the world of Dragonlance.
Or a great start.
For
somebody who really, hasn't sat down and gone through, the hours and, debates and the decisions in your head on when you're making that initial character for a campaign, on who they're going to be and what they're going to be. Here you have, this is what this character is, this is how this character is going to act. And so for somebody coming in, I could see how that would be a great benefit too, because of the fact that 90% of those decisions have already been made for you.
Right. So as Luke has already said, there's these modules that came out. So I think it bears on saying we're going to be reviewing and spoiling the heck out of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. But this will kind of lend to what my thoughts on the book are, so I need to make sure this gets out there, is that this book was created kind of as a business decision of, we've created these modules, We're going to get the guy who helped create the modules, Tracy Hickman, to kind of spearhead a story, which he does. They'd looked at hiring an author to do it, and that kind of fell through. And by the time the author kind of thing didn't work, both Hickman, who to my understanding hadn't written a book before, and Margaret Weiss, who was brought in as an editor, decided they were too invested in the characters, too invested in the storyline. They were going to have this thing, and I think it was probably just guys sitting around the table going, we can do this. We're going to write this book, you know? So that does play into maybe later on thoughts on the book and how it plays out. But this is their first outing, to my understanding, Hickman and Weiss, as book writers. Now, they've gone on to write tons of novels, Weiss and Hickman, and have become well-respected in the genre.
And that's one of those things, like you said, too, is us sitting in this room after reading this novel, after looking at, some of the history of this is going to be a spoiler.
Oh,
you should read the book first. I'm telling you that. Or if you don't want to read or if you're never going to read the book, then that's fine too. But if you're looking for us not to spoil things from the book, we're going to be spoiling things for the book because we're meant to be like the third companion piece here. You have the role-playing game, you have the novel, now you have four idiots in a room talking about the novel. We're meant to all of us go together, so there's going to be plot points and there's going to be all that information that's going to go in with that.
Exactly. So yeah, with that being said, why don't you, if you have not read and you do not want spoilers, stop listening now. And Bob, why don't you give us a synopsis?
Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. TSR Publishing, 1984. The world of Krynn. 300 years after the great cataclysm shattered the land with earthquakes, disease, and great pestilence, the gods have left Krynn, leaving mortals to fend for themselves. Over the centuries, the inhabitants of Krynn have lost faith in the gods, and the races have once again renewed old distrusts and prejudices. But one god is desperately trying to return to the land of Krynn. Takesis, Queen of Darkness, has used her dark powers to create a gateway to the land. Wielding her dark arts, she has summoned an army led by the Dragon High Lords, who are preparing their evil hordes for an invasion. Enter the Companions. The Companions are a group of adventurers who had separated 5 years earlier in order to seek proof of the true gods of Krynn. Returning to the peaceful village of Solace, they find their homeland under occupation by goblin soldiers. The friends gather at the Inn of the Last Home and discuss all that they have discovered over the last 5 years. Waited on by a buxom barmaid Tika, the group is made up of their leader, Tanis, half-elven, Flint, Fireforge, a lovably gruff old dwarf, Sturm Brightblade, a stoic knight of Solamnia, Karaman Majere, a powerful and physically imposing warrior, and his twin brother, Raistlin Majere, the dark and brooding red-robed wizard of high sorcery, notable for his golden skin and hourglass eyes. And Tasselhoff Burfoot, a small and curious kinder. As fate would have it, they are also 2 barbarians in the inn. Goldmoon, a statuesque blonde beauty carrying a blue crystal staff, and her lover, the sinewy Riverwind, bringing our cast of characters to 8. But the blue crystal staff carried by Goldmoon has magical healing powers, and after using it to heal a seeker, the companions are forced to flee Solace. Pursued by evil draconians, the companions take shelter in the haunted forest of Darken Wood. But there is no rest for the weary as they encounter the guardian ghosts of the forest and are attacked yet again by draconian hordes, only to be saved by centaurs, who take them to the Forest Master, an enchanted white unicorn. Yes, I said it, an enchanted white unicorn. We'll get to it. The Forest Master directs the companions to go to the ruined city of Xak Tsaroth and find the discs of Mishakal, which are needed to restore the gods to Krynn. The companions eventually make it to Xak Tsaroth, where they befriend one of the local inhabitants of the deserted and crumbling city, a gully dwarf named Bupu. The bumbling but loyal Bupu leads the companions to the lair of Kisanth, the black dragon who guards the discs of Mishakal. Are you with me? The epic battle ensues, and 20-sided dice are rolled with reckless abandon. In the battle, Kisanth is defeated, and the companions escape with the discs and a bonus: an ancient spellbook belonging to the archmage Fistendantalus. Inexplicably, the companions go back to Solace to stock up on supplies, only to find it in flames.
The companions are captured by the evil armies and forced into a slave caravan where they meet Gilthanas of Qualinesti, the elven nation where Tennis Half-Elven was born. The group is to be brought to Pax Tharkis, where they will be forced into the mines to work. While in chains on the road, the group of friends meets up with Fizbin, an old absent-minded mage. Our heroes don't have to wait long in captivity, however, as they are soon freed by Porthios, brother of Gilthanas, and the companions flee to Qualinesti, bringing the number of characters in this group, not counting Boo-Boo, to 12.
Just when I thought we were running out.
Well, it couldn't get any more complicated than this. While in Qualinesti... Qualinesti, not Rivendell. The companions decide to lead an attack on Pax Tharkis and free the slaves. Pax Tharkis is under the iron fist of Dragon High Lord named Lord Verminard. The slave children are guarded by an old red dragon named Metafleur, who suffers from...
Old age,
dementia,
Dragon's timers.
Dragon's timers, oh my gosh.
After befriending the doddering old dragon, meeting yet another ally, Elistin, character 13, who is converted by Goldmoon into the first true cleric of the good god Paladin. The epic final battle takes place. Swords are drawn, dragons fight like UFC champions, and heroes fall into giant piles of feathers. Yes, I'm not making this up. In the end, Verminard is defeated, and Goldmoon and Riverwind are married. No, wait, there's no more. However, the Dark Queen Takesis still threatens Kryn and our heroes. Our heroes are burdened with the knowledge that Takesis and her dark army cannot be defeated until the legendary Dragonlance can be found. And there is the Dragonlance, finally, at the end. Dragonlance, where this series of novels gets its name. That is a long summary. If you're still sitting there listening...
Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you. Think of what it was like to write notes on this stuff, people. So let's get into it. Dragons of Autumn Twilight. That was your summary. Hopefully you've read the book. We have this preface. The book starts out with a preface. The old man. Fizbin,
yes. And is he... Okay, I do need to ask. I got confused. Is he the guy telling stories in The Inn of the Last Home?
Yes, I believe.
Yes.
So
Yes.
That explains. Well, according to this book, he has to be. Either that or we're adding 14, 15, and 16
characters
in our groups of who are these people.
Right.
So it starts out with that, and it starts out with the preface of, the old man and this idea of
he's entering the inn,
there,
right?
And we never find out his name until way later in the book when we meet up with him again.
Right.
And I just. Again, going back to the old cartoon, that is my mental image of Fizbin, is the dungeon master from the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, and this is where it is so great how when you read a novel, everybody's images in their head is their own. I mean, this was totally Gandalf, and I think the image you get in your head is how you are going to interpret sometimes this book, because I immediately saw Gandalf in this, and that immediately changed my thoughts sometimes on this beginning. I'm like, oh yeah, Gandalf shows up, right? Tolkien-esque, right? And shows up in this inn. I saw this character, because it should be noted that this old man walks into the Inn of the Last Home, which is this tavern that's in a tree in Solace.
In a city that's within a tree.
Within a tree, yeah. Well, it's very cool. I mean, I love the imagery that can come to mind here of these, these people that live in trees,
And of course, being the Star Wars, being the Star Wars nuts too, and having that in our heads, I have this vision of this town being similar to Kashyyyk.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that was immediately what I thought of.
Whoa, that is way too deep. Just in case people listening, you're like, Kashyyyk, everybody was going, Star Wars. I thought he was going to say Ewoks and Endor. Nope, we're going to level down, people.
Kashyyyk is the homeworld of the Wookiees.
Which looks, according to the novels, looks nothing like what happened in episode 3.
Yes, exactly.
But that's for another
That's what I was
podcast.
going to say. You would obviously know this if you were as big of a fan of the prequels as Klob is.
No, the prequels has to do with the novels.
It's all the
I
Timothy
will
Zahn
say
novels, which
my
we'll get to.
my
I know.
Kashyyyk was was Knights of the video game, Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh yes,
right.
Kashyyyk. That was immediately what I
Yes,
thought of was the
yes.
video game.
Yep. And we
going
have
through that.
this city that's within the trees.
Yes.
Right.
And we have this massive tavern that's within the oldest tree in the forest.
And I'll be returning to this again and again with my thoughts on this book. Is that this book, we've got to remember, was published in 1984. It is 1 year since Empire Strike or Return of the Jedi has come out.
Correct.
I think there's a lot of Star Wars elements that were in these guys' minds, in Wise and Hickman's minds when they were writing this. So sure, this is Endor. This is the Wookiee homeworld. But anyway,
Clouds.
Yeah.
But anyway, the old magician comes in, which right away, because this is the beginning of the book, I see the old man as being Chekhov's gun. Right? This is what I'm seeing. And for those of you who don't know, Chekhov's gun is this dramatic principle that this guy... All right, so what Chekhov's gun is this Russian writer Anton Chekhov came up with this principle for when you write, if something happens in the first act, if you say there's a gun on the wall or something like that, it needs to come off in the second or third act and be used. You don't put things in that are irrelevant. So as soon as this old man walks in, I know he's extremely relevant to the storyline, and that he's going to be coming back. I don't know if the novel really does a good job always of making the connections. I mean, even it sounds right now around the round table, hey, was that old guy really... Fizbin...
Well, there's a big difference between only being done with the first book and going through all three, because I really do think that there is a ton, especially book 3 has a ton of full circle stuff that you'll understand as we'll talk about it later on. But yes, the old man is in the inn and he's telling stories to children, and you guys had Gandalf in your head.
Yes, and you had the guy from the cartoon.
And I had a complete different version in my head because of his speech pattern and because of his actions, and because I imagine the little old guy in the robe that is a little too big for him, maybe.
Right.
He's not regal. He's senile.
Right.
Yeah, what I had was the animated Sword in the Stone. I had Merlin from that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean.
That's actually kind of a happy medium.
That's a happy medium. Yeah. I guess I was thrown also because the book it bears noting that the book actually has illustrations in it at the beginning of every chapter. There's little pictures
along with those wonderful chapter titles.
Yes, let's talk about that as long as we're here.
Bring it up.
It's fine to title a chapter, but this book, for some reason, gives you a second line that kind of spoils the entire chapter.
Yeah, really, you could probably go through
the party. Somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
What?
You could probably go through the whole book reading only the chapter titles and know the entire plot of this book.
You would know it in a abridged version, but yeah.
I'm trying to flip through it right now and find one of my favorite titles that I just went, oh, well, there we go.
Right, and in these and while you're looking for it, in these titles, there's this artwork that so you get kind of the idea of what in your head what draconians look like and things like that, which I think is smart.
I like it. I like it, and I like the fact though that it's not so much as the full-fledged illustration.
Right.
It's just it's like a pencil sketch.
Right. So if you're creating this whole world of creatures and things that are unfamiliar, I think it's a good idea that, unlike, say, and guys, just get over it. I'm going to be referring to Star Wars a lot because that's my thing. But
that's who he is.
That's who I am. In the Star Wars universe, when you go into books, I mean, you've already got movies to reference all of these things back to. So if somebody says a Mon Cal, or whatever, what that looks like, right? But in these, I mean, Draconian, everybody would be picturing something different. I think it's a smart idea.
Kind of the fun. That's kind of the fun of doing the novels themselves, though, too, is the fact that it does leave a little bit to the imagination. Right. It allows you to personalize the story that much more because you've come up with what you think that these characters actually look like.
Right. And see, this is where I got that he looked like Gandalf, is because they show Fizbin's hat, which is a Gandalf hat.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a big, tall Gandalf.
I forgot about that, yeah.
But again, I always see in everything with the hat, I always see the little fuddling guy in the robe that's too big, and the hat is scrunched and too big.
I'm going to have to reread this book with your vision of Fizbin, because that's going to be crazy. All right. Did you find it?
I found two of them. It was the Farewell to Flint. right away. Right in the beginning,
Hey, we'll get there.
I was just like, really? That title? right away? All right. Okay. And then there's another one where it was just the traitor revealed. Like,
Right.
You just told me what... If I really wanted to get through this book quickly, I could just skim quick and look for the 3 things you just told me, and you just told me the entire chapter.
Right, exactly.
As I say that, though, I'm a reader that I usually just skip. I don't really notice when I go into a new chapter. I just kind of keep reading.
Right.
So I rarely actually read the titles.
Okay.
Well, and that was one of the things with we were talking about the chapters, and so the preface goes along, and we have this preface dealing with the old man, and if you just kind of want to finish that off, because there's a couple of things I want to bring up in chapter 1 here that were just...
Oh, we have got to be moving on to chapter 1 because that was a long time on this preface.
Yeah.
So, chapter 1, it is kind of this thing. All of our companions meet up in a tavern. I've heard a lot of people say how this is cliche. Like,
Definitely.
oh yeah, they start up with a tavern. I'm gonna defend this, that this is 1984. Besides really Lord of the Rings, there is not a lot out there that is going to be using this whole meet and now it's sitting in 2017.
Part of the game as well. That's part of the game, and as somebody who really hasn't played the game, that's part of the game. No matter what town you go to, no matter what happens when you're playing a D&D campaign, to find out information, to try to figure out where the DM wants you to go for your next step, you always go to the tavern.
Sitting in 2017, this is cliche. 1984, you're a kid looking...
This might have been the start of it.
Yeah, right. Well, right. I mean, you look at... Well, I'm going to take you back to, about 77, 79 is when Sword of Shannara comes out by Terry Brooks. I'm going to be referring to that book again. Maybe we'll cover it someday. Again, very Tolkien, and that starts out in a tavern as well.
Okay.
And kind of has basically the same types of characters a lot. So it had been done, so I could see where maybe that would be raised. But really, this is for young people looking to continue their Tolkien fascination, who's read everything. There's not a lot of stuff from the 70s, early 80s was really kind of dark fantasy. Even things like the Conan novels, very dark, kind of adultish. Right, we got like stuff like Darkness Weaves and things like that by Wagner. They're really kind of dark. So this is kind of a fun romp, and I feel like it's maybe more creating the genre, like you said, more than really kind of rehashing it. So.
And again, remember, it's a game thing.
Right.
It's actually written specifically. Right. It's actually written in some of the Dungeon Master guides about places that you can lead your party to. If they're running out of ideas, if they have questions, if they need to get more information, you can lead them. And the tavern is always mentioned. It's taverns and churches.
Right.
It's basically one of those things where it's like, where are you going to go when you're in a new town and you need to find out the right information?
Right.
And you go to the bar.
It's been said of this book that
That's what I do in every town I go to.
It's been said of this book that you can hear the dice rolling. And I'm your guy that's not the Dungeons and Dragons guy. Everybody else here is. So maybe I'm your guide if you're not a Dungeons and Dragons guy. But this is definitely, right? Like you said, Claude, the beginning of a campaign. I'm going to cite it oftentimes as a detraction of the book that this book was written after the modules had already been completed.
Correct.
And so this book feels, especially this first one, like it is adhering to very specific game modules, and you can almost hear the for me, video games, the startup at the beginning of a chapter, like doot 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 doot, like we are now in a dungeon, and the characters are going like. I feel that it might be a problem or a detraction for me for this book that it does that, but it definitely adheres to that.
I would like to say within this first chapter, I really enjoyed how they brought in the first 3 characters that they talked to.
It was amazing.
It was Tass, it was Flint, and Tanis. I loved how there's a little bit of a fight. All of those things were immediately
and you really got,
okay, this is easy, this is quick, I'm loving this. It's
and you
enjoyable.
you really understood the Flint Tasselhoff relationship from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah.
It was really, and again, I'll go right along with you.
Yeah.
They really came across as like the R2D2 C3PO for me at times,
Right.
where it's just the small one that's just bouncing down the trail going somewhere, and the one behind him going, what's going on? Where are we going? What are we doing?
I totally had a flash to that at a different point when we get towards the end of that book. It is R2 and C3PO for me, but we'll get there.
But you had that. It was established right away with that relationship that there really was that. that aspect from Flint especially was, oh my God, I'm gonna crab about this person. I hate this person. It's gonna, oh my God, I want to get away. It's gonna be this. But you really kind of got that idea of, okay, they are great friends.
Yeah.
And they are great traveling, and they are great companions. And I also got the precursor in my head from reading enough books like this, and I'm like, oh God, something's gonna happen at some point.
Just seeing this too, this is in my mind, the old guy, just kind of going,
the old guy and the race that never ages beyond 12.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it should be said that I mean, these races are beholden to what has happened in D&D. It's definitely comes from Tolkien as well. So they're what you expect, kind of the long-lived elves, the ornery dwarves, all of that kind of thing. It should be brought up, though, Kender, I believe, was something special for Dragonlance. I do believe TSR... is it my mistake? I'm not a D&D guy, but that there was hobbits in the beginning of D&D, and then there was an issue, and they kind of turned them into halflings, and then they didn't want to do halfling. I think Hickman didn't want to do halflings, so he called them Kinder in this book or something.
And
like
then
this.
he really morphed that class into the Kinder class,
right?
And into this idea of they're just taking it from being hobbitish, and actually being called hobbits until Tolkien's people came down and went, no.
Hey, quit ripping us off.
My feel on the Kinder is that they might be in some ways the Jar Jar Binks of the Dragonlance universe. That some people love them and other people hate them. I've heard to likes to play Kinder ever.
It's hard to play a Kinder.
Yeah,
it's very hard to play a Kinder properly because, like I said, they're 12.
Mm-hmm.
They're 12 no matter if they're 112, no matter if they're 113, they're still that 12-year-old bouncy kid who's getting into everything and is bouncing around. You have to be so up all the time. And the fact that the race itself doesn't have, they don't have words for things like fear and hesitation, and because it's like Vulcans not having emotions.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And if you play that character, you are automatically going to be causing some party conflict.
Right. Oh, exactly.
Right away.
You have to find things. I love that. I think that's the greatest thing for the little thief that bounced around. Well, no, I found it.
Right. It's just appeared. I'll pay for it later.
It's really great. The book Dragons of Autumn Twilight that I read has these annotations in it, and so there's kind of these behind the scenes things. I thought it kind of weird. Tracy Hickman, one of the authors, said that Kinder. He came up with the name Kinder he just says the legendary Kinderkin. I'm like, legendary Kinderkin.
Well, if it was legendary, we would know.
Well, yeah, I have never heard of it.
Isn't that aren't those European leprechauns?
I looked it up, and from what I could find, because I'm like, that's what I thought. I'm like, this must be some sort of leprechaun I've never heard of or something like that. This makes no sense. All I could find is that a Kinderkin or Kilderkin is an Old English liquid measure, usually being about half a barrel. So I guess he's half a barrel high. Are these like Smurfs? Like they're only 3 apples high. What are Smurfs? 3 apples high or something?
No, because it says he's like half or 3/4 as tall as the dwarf.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, Kinderkin, some sort of English liquid measurement. Let's get on to these other characters because we got to get it out of this into the last film. We we also meet the brothers Raistlin and Caramon, which I guess is supposed to, their names give us some sort of illusion. It is said Raistlin is supposed, his name comes from Wasting Man. Raistlin, Wasting Man. I don't know. And Caramon is Caring Man. I can see caring because he's always caring for his brother.
I mean, I want to know how
he's carrying.
Yeah.
How many chapters did you get into before you realized it wasn't Cameron?
Yeah.
Because it was about 3 for me. I'm like, wait a minute.
It was longer for me until you guys told me. Because once again, when I'm reading, I just kind of say a name in my head that is similar to what I've read, and Cameron was what I constantly.
Let's make sure we spell it out clearly for everybody. So we have so far we have Tanis, who is this half elf, right?
Tanis, who's a half elf with a beard, and that's like a big thing because elves can't grow beards. So even though he's got slightly pointed ears, he's got a beard which messes with people throughout the entire book.
And so we have him. We've got Flint Fireforge, who's this dwarf. We've got Tasselhoff, who's this little kinder. They all meet up on the road, and then they end up at this Inn of the Last Home, where there's this buxom barmaid. We're introduced to
feisty
feisty, buxom,
red-headed barmaid.
Yeah, who is cleaning things, and her name is Tika, and she'll figure prominently later on in the book. And then we meet the rest of the group. There is this kind of brother couple, which you just talked about, Raistlin and Caramon. Caramon is kind of this big, tall, strong, I'm going to go back to him, kind of Conan the Barbarian type, I guess. And
a bit of an oaf.
A bit of an oaf sometimes. I guess it is kind of alluded to that he is not extremely bright, although it not being read that he's stupid or anything like that. But then there's kind of the more conniving, world-wise Raistlin, who we got to note has gold skin and hourglass eyes, which I would have to say what I thought was cool about these hourglass eyes is it said that when he looks at things, he sees them.
He sees the truth.
He sees the truth, and he sees things as they are, like aging and dying. So he can never find love because when he looks at a woman, they age and die immediately in front of him. He
sees all of them.
He sees all, yes.
And it is from this whole backstory that we get with Raistlin on, how he got his proper skills and his proper training, and part of the fact that he is as we understand it at this point, he's a fairly powerful mage. But in order to have the magic, he sacrificed his body for that.
Well,
and that's why he has this. It really is a symbiotic relationship with his twin brother, who's the big. And I love the dynamics of the night and day between Caramon and Raistlin, where he's the big strong guy who may not, he's smart enough, but he's not going to be the conniving one to make a plan, and then kind of fragile looking or fragile feeling, sickly, constantly coughing Raistlin, who has the power.
Right. And it should be said then that this group has been set. They split up 5 years ago. They said they would meet in 5 years at this inn to find out what they have discovered. I guess it was kind of lost on me again as to what had they gone out to look for?
The truth of the old gods.
The old gods.
But really, when I'm reading it, I'm just kind of dismissing it because you're meeting all these characters,
right?
And you're learning so much about them that I don't have enough, brain space or brain power while I'm trying to remember all these names and who they are and what they do and why they're doing it.
And with all these names and where they are and what they do, I do think it was a smart idea to at least set them up a little bit as previous friends, because now you're explaining all this other stuff about them. If you didn't set up that they already knew each other, then you'd have to explain that as well, and we'd get way too much into stuff.
And this is where, for me, I'm going to start having a few issues with the book where I feel there is already, at this point, a lot of characters that are thrown at you. Like you said, Luke, there's this whole backstory that must be understood in this world, that this world of Kryn has gone through a cataclysm, and the old gods have left, and so now they're without gods, and there's these people going around searching. The Seekers are searching for new gods, and so the gods have left, and the evil god is coming back, and all of this stuff is happening, and then this backdrop over top of it is this huge cast of characters. And again, I'm going to go back to this. I'm not going to blame Hickman and Weiss for this. This is them being, and in fact, I think they've stated they wanted to cut this down, but they are beholden to this product that says you need to get every character that we're going to offer into this book. Oh, man, yeah. So we have already, I feel, too many characters kind of going forward. And we're not done. It is mentioned here that there is another character, Kitiara, who is the sister of Raistlin and Caramon.
The older sister.
The older sister. And that she, for no apparent reason, has just decided to leave. She
sent word she wasn't going to meet him.
Yeah, wasn't going to meet with him.
She's not coming.
It's obviously she is some sort of love interest of Tanis, half-elven. And so then we move on from there. And we're not done. We get into chapter 3, and in walks Sturm, right, who is our Knight of Solamnia. The thing that I love about Sturm, and tell me if this, I don't know if I have not seen mustache written off
mustaches
in the English language, but I am reading this, and I've got to read this. This is a quote from chapter 3. Let me see if I can find where I put this. Yeah, he says something about flowing mustaches.
Yes, multiple.
Right. It feels, I read it, I'm like, multiple mustaches? Because I've only heard it called, like, mustache. He had a long flowing mustache. I'm like, mustaches? Like, does he have 4? Like, I'm envisioning, like, 4 mustaches hanging down.
I had to look that up.
Yeah, really? Like,
I had to
I'm
look
glad
that
you
up.
did.
As the guy, as the word guy, as the guy with the literature degree, I had to look that up. And it actually talks about the fact that in mustache lore,
what?
There's mustache lore?
If it goes all the way across, and I'm pointing at my mouth, so I shouldn't do that in front of the mic. And if it goes all the way across, it's a mustache. If it's got that weird split in the middle and then comes down, they're mustaches.
Okay, so he's got
what
skin.
you're saying is
He's got skin between them. Okay.
Mustaches.
But
I
have
have
you seen
mustaches.
have you seen the 70s
Yes.
like the 70s stash or like the 1800s mustaches they try to do sometimes where it is actually like almost shaved, where it's shaved in the middle and then it comes like way
So in
out.
other words, this is very important, listeners. When you're reading this, picture Ted Nugent walks in armor, okay, and with him, right, coming in with Sturm, he's got 2 other people, right, Goldmoon
And Riverwind.
and Riverwind. Okay,
Well,
thoughts on Goldmoon and Riverwind?
I never saw her as blonde.
Yeah. These guys come in, and what I feel odd about this, maybe this is forward-looking, is they feel very Native American, but are referred to as being very Nordic in appearance. So there's this weird blending of Native American and Nordic kind of ideas, I feel, at least in my mind, which I found intriguing. It's a very intriguing idea. Even if you look at the Larry Elmore, who is the guy who did the art for the covers and things like that, he's got a very kind of native take on things like a Tanis. He's got feathers, in his hair and stuff, which I found is a really cool way of separating this world, I think, from, say, very Nordic feeling, some of the other stuff that has gone before.
Yeah, like Lord of
the
the
Rings. Right, yeah. It doesn't feel so high fantasy from England, as it's kind of its own unique universe.
Yeah, and with Riverwind and
Goldmoon.
I almost said Goldblum, but that's something else entirely.
That's Jeff.
That's Jeff. Goldmoon, I never saw her as blonde until like a couple until like I think it was the end of the book or the second book. It was the wedding where they talked about her golden hair during the wedding, and I'm like, golden hair? She's a Native American.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I always saw her as blonde.
They do talk about it earlier.
Yeah, they do. But
silver and gold hair.
But she carries with her a staff. Okay, and there's a lot of importance to this staff. But anyway, what ends up happening is she sings some songs.
Can we talk about the songs?
Can we talk about the songs?
Actually, yes. Hold on, you guys.
Oh boy.
Oh God, is there a part?
Not only in the Dragonlance Module 1 are there lyrics to the song, there's a full-blown musical score for it.
Oh my God.
I think we need to
The
get a
Song
piano. I
of
think we need to
Goldmoon.
get guitars.
There you
Let's
are.
do this.
Okay, so we should say Weiss and Hickman did not write the poetry and the songs that appear a lot in this book. I do feel that I'm going to be Mr. Negative on this one and say this is where they are trying to go Tolkien. They are trying to establish cool lore. These things were written by another TSR guy named Michael Williams. Holy cow! I read the first few of them and I stopped reading them. When they came up, I would skip them. I was like, oh, here comes another piece of poetry. Here comes another song. I don't mind poetry. I couldn't get through this stuff.
Well, and I think part of my
I'm right there with
frustration.
you.
I was exactly right. I was there with you from number 1.
Right.
I got halfway through the first song and went, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Flip.
And by the
first
way,
song I was done.
and Pete or Klob is a literature guy.
Yes.
And, well, it was just they were without the music and without everything. But if you paid attention, every time that there was a song, you got the full lyrics of the song that sometimes went on for like 3 pages. And then there was a paragraph synopsis of what the song was about right after
So
the
you
song.
could just read
every
that.
time.
Yep.
Every time the next paragraph when you got back into the story was Antanis was thinking about the song and thinking about how it talked about her home country.
And there's part of me that says maybe that was a thing that they were doing because TSR Hickman talks about in some of his annotations that TSR thought that their use of language was at too high of a level for the demographic they were shooting at. I don't know what he's talking about.
Excuse me?
Really?
I did not feel the language in this was at too high of a level.
I will admit it, I'm a very slow reader. I blew through this book.
Right. TSR, I don't know if they were going for kind of that 11, 12, 13 or whatever year old demographic they're going for. But Hickman says he wanted to keep that. TSR execs came back and said the language in this is a little bit at too high of a level. We need to cut it back some, but they didn't. That they fought and kept it in. I don't know what he's talking about. So maybe those synopsis at the end of these big songs and poetry were like, 10-year-olds aren't going to be able to get this. We'll summarize it at the end. I don't know.
There is something about a self-aware book, though. I do like that.
Yeah,
but I cannot imagine this book at a lower level.
Yeah,
like
it's written at a 5th, 6th grade level.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is somebody. If a student came to me and was in 5th, 6th grade and was like, "What should I read?" I'd be pointing them at Dragonlance. I wouldn't be saying this is too high of a level for you. Although we'll get to it. There's some little TNA in this.
This is something my son's. I have a 10-year-old. My son's a huge Rick Riordan fan and Harry Potter and fantasy fan, and I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait till probably about 12.
Right.
When I can hand him some of the Dragonlance stuff and go, here, this will work perfectly for you.
Oh, and by the way, Dad has a podcast. You should really check it out.
Share it with your friends at school. It should be noted here that Riverwind and Goldmoon aren't part of the group that split up before.
No.
They just happened to come into this tavern because somebody told them they should.
Yeah, and I believe we're supposed to feel like the old man who showed up first because he's... At the beginning, that whole preface, he's kind of surreptitiously putting chairs in the corner and whatever. Like he's orchestrated this in some way or knows it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
This gathering. He's somehow the shadowy old wizard in the corner that is watching this all play out. But our first bit of action happens here.
This is kind of just kind of coming to me. I mean, we do know it's Fizbin.
Right.
But maybe that's some little hint at him being the DM.
Oh,
absolutely.
Hey,
It's totally setting it up, yeah.
The DM going, I need these two characters in. Hey, here you go.
Hey, you know what? How about a tavern?
Although we'll get to it later on in the book. If he's in the DM, man, I've got issues with this DM.
Wait till 3. Wait till 3.
Okay, so anyway, we got our first little bit of action that happens here, where there's this high theocrat who comes in. He's angry. He says that they're corrupting the youth. This whole Goldmoon sings this song. I guess it's some sort of 60s hippie rebellion song because she's corrupting their youth. He's mad. He somehow gets, he goes into the fire, which it should be noted that the entire group, it's very clear that nobody is at fault for him going into the fire. Like they're establishing early, this is a really good group of heroes, that this bad guy comes in, gets angry, but it's none of their fault that he falls into the fire. And then...
It's a little Saturday morning cartoon.
A little bit, yeah. He trips over his own robes.
Oh, the clumsy evil guy falls in the fire.
You can almost hear that like Scooby-Doo, like and he falls into the fire.
Bonk.
But then horribly gets burned.
Yeah.
So that's where the similarity ends. But then... It ends up Goldmoon can heal him. The staff she carries has healing properties. But instead of being grateful...
Which is a big deal because that sort of clerical magic has left the world.
Correct.
Since the cataclysm.
Correct. There's no more healing magic after the old gods left.
Right. It's kind of like a miracle happened. Like all of a sudden, like everybody's sitting around a tavern, a guy walks in, somebody falls into the fire, and then all of a sudden a guy like feeds everybody there with loaves and fishes. Everybody like, whoa! What's going on? A miracle just happened here in this bar. That's what happens here is this whole healing with the staff is not supposed to have happened. This is a miracle nobody has ever seen.
So what does the bad guy do automatically after he's just been saved by the magical healing lady?
He orders their capture and they have to flee. Which, okay, I have listened to other people talk about Dragons of Autumn Twilight, right? And they note some of the things that are said in this book as being like the classic phrases from the book. This is one of them, with Tanis saying, "We'll have to go out through the kitchen."
Oh, exactly.
People are saying that's a big thing. I don't know. This did not dawn on me as a big line from the book, and people are throwing this out as like a quotable part of the book.
It's the backdoor aspect. Think of the action movie. Think about something's going on and the hero runs out the back door.
So we'll have to get out from the back door.
They have that fight where like the 85, the John Wick thing, where like the 85 henchmen are coming at you, so he steps into the kitchen and then fights him on his way out of the kitchen using like the pan to like slap the guy back or something like that. That's totally how I took that, and I actually actually really like that because, of course, there's a hole in the kitchen. Why wouldn't there be a hole in the kitchen for them to jump through out of this tavern in a tree?
All right, we got to roll for initiative and go. So here we go. They end up hiding at Tika's house. Goblins are searching for them. The part that I like, just as chapter 4, I don't have a lot to say about it, except I do like the part. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Conan stuff. This felt Conan to me. I said Caraman feels like Conan. He grabs two of them and smashes their heads together. And that's something I like Conan does all the time. And I love that. I love that part. I could just hear grapefruits or something smashing together. We're moving on to chapter 5, and the group escapes to this Crystal Mere Lake. And this is where really I think the thing of note that happens here is that Raistlin notices that, or speaks of, there being 2 of the constellations are not in the sky.
Yes.
And that was a huge thing. And that's something I think maybe should have been brought up earlier, because those constellations have been missing for a long time. And I mean, think of the stuff that would happen right now with, our Earth. If all of a sudden Orion and, the Big Dipper Orion and Polaris disappear.
Yeah, right. Like both of them are gone and nobody's really talking about it.
Neil deGrasse Tyson would lose his
Right.
But let's not talk about it until we're being chased by goblins.
Yeah, this is the time we're gonna notice. Hey, by the way, the guy with the hourglass eyes is just kind of chilling in the front of the boat and goes, "Hey, you know what? There's some constellations missing." Well, I'm glad that you're an astronomer, buddy.
We gotta go.
We gotta go.
Shooting at us right now.
Yeah.
And the Flint does not want to get in the boat.
I love that.
I love
awesome.
the character development on that had Flint's issue with water, and they just allude to at some point he was in a boat with Caramon and Caramon tipped the boat over.
Right.
And they never tell you the rest of the story throughout the entire series. I actually really liked that because it just gave him it gave Flint a little bit more depth rather than just being, I'm the crabby gnome, or I'm the crabby dwarf.
I will say that is where I got my D&D moment of, he must have at some point in the campaign rolled a natural 1 and something terrible happened. I can't swim. I almost died. There's a few other moments throughout this book that I'm like, somebody must have rolled bad.
Right.
And that, I think, added to it. So we're going down this river, and like you said, it's just, hey, there's 2 constellations missing. What?
Right. To me, if you're meeting after 5 years, hey, what have you found about the gods? That's the first thing I'd have been saying. Raistlin would have been sitting there. I'd have been like, hey, by the way, there's 2 constellations missing. And that's all that we would have talked about as soon as we would have met. I don't know what they were talking about.
And they're a really bad lady and a really good guy.
Yeah, I kind of think something might be going on.
Why is nobody checking on where the really bad lady went?
But anyway, they escape, they spend the night in a cave, and they decide they're going to, since they found...
and this is, I can't remember exactly if it's right here when they're in the cave or if it's when they're in the tavern, but they talk about how goblin blood stinks.
Oh yeah.
This is one of my favorite things about the whole thing.
That was right at the very beginning, right before they got to the tavern, because those 2 goblins attacked them.
Right.
Yeah, and
oh man, that's so cool. It's just something I never would have thought of. Like, you can't wash this out of steel; it stinks so bad.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't think of blood generally as having a smell to it.
Yeah. But goblins are so gross that even their blood stinks.
Well, unless you soak your sword in tomato juice. That'll take it out. So they decide to go to Qualinesti, which is the home of the elves, but the problem is...
that sometimes it's only Qualinost and not Qualinesti.
I don't know what's going on here. Again, Hickman in these little annotations always says how he's like giving allusions to a bigger universe. I feel it's kind of...
just chuck it in some like parentheses, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel maybe he has a higher opinion of what he was trying to build here than actually comes through. But whatever. And again, I'm going to put it out there. I have not read the other 138 novels that tie into this.
You're pretty close, though.
I'm getting close. Hey, I've been reading. I've read through the tales. I've read through Legends, so I'm making my way there, people. But anyway, it is forbidden for humans to enter Qualinesti, and they've got to go first through Darken Wood. But this whole time that he's talking about the elves and Qualinesti, I'm thinking this is, again, keeping the beats of Tolkien. right?
I think so.
Where they are, I mean, they.
Oh yeah, he's
they,
trying.
They
He's
are
trying to establish a culture.
Yeah, they are escaping. I mean, you've got this group that's escaping, being pursued by the Dark Riders, right? The Ring Wraiths.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Yep. And then we need to go to the elves, right? You know, because they know, right?
Who are realistically your stereotypical? They're token elves.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
We're snooty. We don't have time for mankind
Yeah.
because we're so much better than you are, and your lives go by in the blink of an eye. And we're really good archers.
Right. And here again, this is going to be my problem with the book in some ways. Again, when we get to the end, will we recommend this book or not for reading? One of my issues with this is that it is very close to Tolkien. I'm not going to necessarily fault it. This again, we're looking at this book from 1984. Terry Brooks, a book which maybe we'll get to, The Sword of Shannara, came out in 1977. I mean, I'm telling you, if you want to read a book that is, I mean, this guy just ripped from Tolkien. Ooh. That guy did it already. I'm going to say these guys ripped a lot from Tolkien. I believe one of the reviews at the time even said that, like, this book contains ragged, bloody chunks of Tolkien. And I agree with that. It's like, it's Tolkien not done as well as Tolkien. This is going to be my beef with it, is this is not as good as Tolkien. I don't know that anything really can be. I'm one of those kind of guys. And a lot of this is going beat for beat. But hey, these are guys right now, Wise and Hickman, who are not writers. They were tasked with this by a company, and for their first time out, not bad so far. Not bad.
And truthfully, it's for a different audience. We have to remember that.
Right.
We have to remember that this wasn't. Dragonlance was not written for Tolkien,
right.
for the same people that Tolkien wrote for, that Lord of the Rings wrote for. And it's this aspect that we do have to remember that.
Right.
However, there again, like you said, the bloody chunks of the Tolkien, universe.
Yes.
I love that because that's actually very good. But we think of how many things are all of these races and all of this idea, a lot of these ideas that were invented by Tolkien and the guys and ladies before him as well. A template is a template is a template.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to write a book with dwarves and elves and everything else, you're going to suffer the fact that you're alluding to Tolkien. I mean, you're always going to be going back to Tolkien.
Can we talk about the forest, please?
Let's get to Darken. We need to get to Darken.
We need to get. So there's just a part before that that I need to talk about.
Oh, okay.
They're going on the trail and they meet up with these hooded figures.
Oh yes.
And which turn out to be draconians. They get jumped, and there's this battle scene. I would say you're really your first big one.
Right.
I hate how it's written.
Oh man, I'm totally gonna go with you on this one because that's what I have written in my notes right here. Is that the one takeaway from this for me was I love the idea that they turn to stone. And so you got to get your sword out of there before they die, otherwise they lock it in their bodies because they turn to stone. But I didn't know half the time what was happening. I felt it was the most poorly written fight, one of the most poorly I've ever read.
I think that goes back to stuff that we saw from the beginning. Is all of a sudden we have 8-9 main characters here.
Oh my God! Yeah.
There's no separation in point of view.
Yes.
One small little sentence we from Taz's point of view, and then we jump to somebody else's point of view. And it took me a good 4 chapters to finally separate in my head the difference between Tanis and Taz.
I was going to say that there's big issues here with Tanis, Taz, and Tika. Points of view shift where we're going from a hero. We're in a hero's mind. Yeah. We're in Verminard's when we get to a mind, and it's just right there. There's no separation. You're like, what is going on? I do feel very elementary some of this stuff that's happening. I feel like there was no editor over this. We got one of the authors, his wife. She's the editor. I don't know.
Like Luke said, that first battle with the Draconian soldiers there's the cool aspect of they turn to stone.
Yeah,
you gotta get it out quick or else you're screwed without a weapon. But things turn to stone, things fall over, all of a sudden somebody's climbed a tree, there's something...
I got lost in parts of
idea
this
what's
fight.
going on here.
Again, we should talk
All I know is
Draconians.
we won.
Draconian's a very cool idea. I love this idea. Instead of orcs, they didn't want to use orcs in this book, so they came up with this idea of kind of dragon-like people with wings and tails. The art for these guys is sweet. I'm like, okay, if there's something you added to D&D that was really cool, these Draconians are cool. I think I'd rather fight Draconians than orcs any day. I think they're cool. This is a very cool concept.
Well, I think that
poorly executed in this writing.
Yes, and especially in this first meeting of the Draconians, where we're first meeting them and seeing them for what they are. And I again, to allude to other sci-fi, I had this great like V alien with wings.
Oh
vibe
yes,
to the
V aliens. Yeah, V. I definitely That's how they're headed, because it's weird. They describe them as having the faces of humans. Like they have human faces, and so that could throw you if there wasn't these illustrations showing them as they look. You might get this weird dragon-bodied thing with a very human face, which is not what the art kind of depicts. But a cool idea. But okay, let's move on. They get past this. They are forced to go through Darken Wood. On their way there, Tasselhoff sings another one of his road songs. Which again, this is a Tolkien ripoff. We're gonna sing a road song.
There's one thing I do need to bring up here, because I'm gonna bring up my problem with it later.
Okay.
Goldmoon starts to really show off her healing powers after the battle. People are hurt, and then it's what's brought up. Raistlin can't touch the staff that hurts him.
Yeah,
that's fine. Whatever. And then Sturm gets hit on the head, and Sturm starts to go crazy, but like her staff can't fix that. I believe it's brought up.
I guess this is how bad the writing was. I didn't even know Sturm started.
Because he starts seeing the white stag. Like
he starts seeing the white stag.
Sturm gets a concussion, but the staff won't heal a concussion.
Yeah, you can get it. You can get cut. You can have your arm almost cut off. But
a concussion. This is too much. I mean, this is again why they should. People playing football, the concussion thing, everything like that. Even magic stabs can't even. Okay, so we get to finally. Are we ready for Darken Wood?
Okay, we're in Darken Wood.
Okay, so we enter Darken Wood, which is supposed to be this haunted woods, right? And they're led into this forest by a white stag. I've already read the whole backstory to this stag. I am not going to talk about what the backstory to this white stag is.
I hardly wanted to read the story about the white stag, so...
Yeah, okay. So this whole white stag leads them into Darken Wood, and then we end up with these, what I think is cool, spectral minions, which I think was
super cool.
Very cool. The picture in the book is awesome. Hey, give me a skeleton in armor any day. I'm with it.
Oh heck yeah!
I'm with it.
Heck yeah.
Since I first saw Jason in the Argonauts, that old movie, the old one from what is it, the 60s, where those crazy skeletons come out of the dragon teeth. I have loved skeleton warriors, so I love me some skeleton warriors.
And I kept thinking of the I kept thinking of the magic card of the reassembling skeleton.
Right.
Where the skeleton gets hit over the head and
Cinder bones, if you will.
Yes.
Right. What I think is cool here, though, is they can't speak to the group, so they have to possess Raistlin, and Raistlin speaks with a different voice. That whole possession aspect, I was thinking movie here. And here I was like, if I was a person making a movie, this is a cool scene. You're in this awesome dark woods, I'm envisioning all this kind of swampy moss hanging everywhere, maybe Endor, or not Endor, Dagobah, kind of looking swamp, right? I don't know, Star Wars guy, right? And then you got this crazy-eyed Raistlin where they're speaking through him. I thought it was cool.
Well, I love the fact that when he was possessed, it was that was how everybody knew he was possessed, because it was a completely dubbed voice for him.
Right.
It was a completely different voice.
Again, to the 8-year-olds reading, Raistlin's not Raistlin anymore. Daddy's not Daddy when he drinks the liquor. Oh my gosh. It's a coping mechanism written in there for 8-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
so that'll come up on our next podcast.
Let's get into this is for me, this is where we've gotten cool, and then these guys destroy it all for me.
It completely jumps the shark.
It gets stupid. Okay, so here we go. We've got these awesome ghosts who lead us to a group of centaurs who pop out of the woods, which to me, centaurs work okay in Greek mythology.
If you're in Hercules, if you're in Xena,
Oh, man.
we can do it. We can do that. However, when they pop up now, it's like, how many genres are we going to try to?
They are throwing
into
everything into the soup, and it doesn't. This is a dark woods. Okay, if you're gonna have centaurs, they should be corrupted in some way. They should be dark. These are just like centaurs that show up, and then everything gets like light, and then. I'm gonna throw this out is the weirdest line in the whole freaking book right here. The centaur, they're told to get on the centaurs' backs. Okay.
This is you are totally okay. This is I'm okay with the centaurs until this.
Okay, and this is what one of the centaurs says. As they're all getting on their backs and stuff, he says, "Nay, thee doesn't need to squeeze me in two." The centaur glanced back, his eyes glittering in the moonlight. "It'll be my job to see thee stays on. Relax. Put thy hands on me rump to balance thyself. There now, grip with thy legs." I can't take that.
All of a sudden,
the hands on the rump thing weirded me out because I don't care if it's a centaur. You don't ride a horse with your hands behind you.
Yeah, no.
All of a sudden,
are you sitting backwards? What's going on here?
All of a sudden, it's 50 Shades of Centaur, and I don't know.
It got weird.
Why is the centaur
really
sexy
quick.
all of a sudden? I don't know what's going on.
That whole line was
really all I felt at that point was nay.
Yes. Okay, so what's the point of these centaurs? They lead him to the forest master.
There isn't.
Yeah,
There isn't.
The point of the centaurs is to lead us to the forest master, who is, of course, a what?
A unicorn.
Why wouldn't it be a pure white unicorn in the dark forest?
And I'm sorry, I have two daughters who I feel bad because I got them watching The Last Unicorn, and they've been watching it way too much. So all I'm hearing is the song by America at this point.
Oh my God.
Last unicorn alive. I'm like, oh my God! Like this book has had really cool elements right here. This is a part that you need to cut out and throw away.
Yes.
Like, I mean, just skip chapters.
And then
9, 10,
and then
11.
not only do we meet the forest master, who is a pure white unicorn, it's a telepathic pure white unicorn.
And
I forgot about the
Who is going to bring in its Pegasi friends who are racists. They don't want to help these guys.
Racist Pegasi, because they got other things to do.
And then all of a sudden, these Pegasi are going to take our heroes on this adventure that makes them fall asleep, and they wake up in a field. So it's like, the Pegasi never needed to happen. The unicorn never needed to happen. They could have gone through the woods, met the ghost. It could have been really cool. They could have left the woods and then been in that field.
This is totally Hobbit, though. This is Hobbit right here, right? Where the eagles bring them and drop them. But they can't even follow through. These Pegasi drop them off early, and they're like, well, we gotta go. We got crap happening. I don't know what's even going on.
There's the one Pegasus that drew the short straw, or the short unicorn horn, or whatever.
Oh, crap.
And so when they wake up, when Tanis wakes up, there's one standing there going, "I just wanted to see if you were okay," and turns around and leaves.
Right. Well, it should be said in all this. All this,
make sure they're alive. That's all I gotta do. All right, bye. It's like taking care of your drunk friend. You make sure they're alive, and then you'll
once they pass out, you get them to a bed, and then you're done.
Right. Well, it should be said that an important part here happens with the last unicorn. Okay, he does.
I can't.
Or she says that a shining one came to her and said that she needed to bring the group to Xak Tsaroth. The Shining One is an old man from the beginning. So again, we're trying to keep this through line of this old man in the beginning now came and helped them out by saying, bring them to Xak Tsaroth. Because there's these discs that they need to find. I can't remember. Does the Pegasus tell them about the unicorn tell them about the discs that they're supposed to find?
Yes.
Okay.
The discs of Mishakal.
Okay, so we're already into chapter 11, 12, and just now do our heroes finally have kind of a mission, kind of a goal. At this point, if we were liberty, I'm going to bring it up. But it's Lord of the Rings, we'd have had a very distinct mission.
And if you're playing a campaign, this is, I feel that this is 3-4 sessions in.
It could have been.
Yeah, it could have been. And just now we're figuring out
what we're supposed to be doing.
But actually, you know what? I'm okay with this because just playing some D&D myself. Some session 1 where you and your friends get together with these characters you made up. You kind of just go together on an adventure without any real reason. These guys, at least, even them being friends beforehand aside,
Right.
they're being chased.
Right.
Hey, we got to run and we got to work together. Otherwise, we're going to get captured by a bunch of goblins.
Right.
That's cool. That's fine. And then just they kind of happen upon a mission while they're doing it. I'm
Given to them by the last unicorn.
I mean, just forget about that. But I'm on board and I'm okay with that.
Right. Okay. So
even going into the Dark Woods, I believe it was the only reason they went into the Dark Woods was because they couldn't take the normal path because they were being chased. So there was
and Sturm got hit on the head and he was following some weight.
Then he got all concussion.
And we've got this aspect too where this is us getting to know the characters, and I understand that, but like the characters never talk to each other or haven't talked to each other at this point unless there's other stuff going on.
Right.
Like we're in a boat. All of a sudden, you're telling us backstory, and I'm like, no, you're running from goblins.
Yeah.
You're not running into the mythical woods, going, yeah. So me and my girlfriend came from the north.
I'll tell you, Club. When we get further into this book towards the end, that inner that monologues that start happening really start to irritate me. All right, so we're on to chapter 12. Our heroes end up going to the destroyed village of Quishu, which again I'm going to bring up. I feel one of the things that doesn't happen very well in everything in this book is the naming scheme for things. It doesn't feel like Kryn
Kryn and Quishu should exist in the same.
Yeah. Like there doesn't seem to be from the same kind of universe. You know, like kind of regions should have regional dialects that seem to match, and we're going from this kind of like, you know, Kryn and Solace.
Yeah.
And Qualinesti, but then we have this Quishu, which definitely seems to have some sort of, you know, more Asian influence kind of a name. It seems like those should be regions that have kind of similar naming conventions instead of just this hodgepodge of different named things. But I don't know, this village to me is supposed to be kind of like what your little platoon moment, where it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's been killed, everybody's been burned. It has a lot of impact, supposed to have a lot of impact. I don't know that it does for me. One of the things I'm going to fault for this book, and I'm really going to turn up the heat on this one as we get later on in this book, is the over-the-top emotionality of characters. Everybody's crying all the time. I can't tell you how many times it's like, Karaman said this with tears in his eyes, and Raistlin said this with tears streaming down his face, and Tanis broke with tears streaming down it. If they were shooting for a demographic of 11, 12-year-olds, man, this is the emotional level of 11 or 12-year-olds, where the love depicted in this book is intense and over the top, kind of wordy feelings where you just don't want to read it sometimes, and same with kind of the epicness. Everything is trying to be epic and failing, like kind of a teen movie in a lot of places for me.
Well, I think that's just the thing, is everything is trying to be epic.
Yeah.
And it's trying to be so much of, it's going to be everything, and he's so broken. Is that it really, human beings aren't like that.
Right.
Or whatever race you want to be. Aren't like that. I mean, there's generally a middle ground somewhere. And I think part of that, like you said, the book gets away from that because you're either stoic and kind of an asshole, or you feel things very deeply.
Right. So anyway, it should be said they move on from Quishu. They are on the road to Xak Tsaroth. Again, I don't know how you guys pronounce it. I said Xak Tsaroth?
Yeah, Xak Tsaroth.
Xak Tsaroth. Ooh, I like that way. Okay. And they have to go through this swamp surrounding the place. But in the end, I guess the long and short of it is they are captured.
Yes.
Right, by Draconians. All but Flint and Tass.
Oh, yes.
The
dynamic duo.
Who escape. Yes. So the two short ones, Flint and Tass, are not knocked out. And kind of a funny part, these guys find a giant dragon. The Draconians are kind of worshipping this giant dragon statue.
I love this part.
A wicker dragon.
A wicker, yeah, it's made out of wicker, or rattan. A rattan dragon. A wicker dragon. And they end up crawling inside of it, or Taz ends up crawling inside of it, right?
And I had that moment where Taz crawls inside of it and starts speaking, and I'm like, I had the Bugs Life moment. You have kids, you've seen that.
Yes.
When they get the bird to like swoop down and scare the bad guys away. That was totally what I was picturing is just the wicker dragon flying around and scaring all the little draconians.
right. Or Wizard of Oz, or some paying
Yes.
attention to that man behind the curtain. Right. Yeah. This part was entertaining. Again, there's parts in this book that are really filled with action, and I feel are written pretty good. And this is one of those scenes where I'm like, okay, this is great. This is some of the stuff I love. You got your heroes tied up and caged and all this kind of stuff, and the only two that can save them are the two small of stature characters. And they're going to fool everybody by acting like the dragon can talk. Taz is inside this wicker dragon, and he's going to talk through it to fool the Draconians into letting the heroes go.
And I really feel like this is something that that could have happened in a actual D&D campaign.
Right.
Your friends have been captured. Da 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 da. What do you do? Well, I look at the wicker dragon. Well, you see a door.
Right.
Oh, I climb into the wicker dragon.
Right. Yeah. And who knows, it probably was the module, right? This is probably what the module was.
I didn't read this part, but
right.
I could assume.
Yeah, I would assume. They are playing really closely, from my understanding, to the module, so I'm sure this was something in the module.
I just love the comedy aspect of this.
Yeah.
I read it entirely as Task just going, oh, cool, let's do this.
Right.
And just constantly going.
I feel
and
this book is
hilarity.
This book is at its best when it does these comedy routines, because this book should not take itself too seriously. And when it's in this kind of lighter, silly, we're climbing into a wicker dragon and fooling the kind of stupid dragon. Again, what I think this book also suffers from is, as of right now, we are in chapter 14. There is not a convincing bad guy yet in sight.
No.
We have been fighting bumbling draconians who are kind of stupid. So
again, the beginning of a campaign.
Right. Yeah. You're at these lower levels.
Yeah, you're at these lower levels.
Yeah.
Everybody's establishing their character. We're establishing.
You gotta level up.
You don't, or even to go back, you don't fight Bowser on the first level of Mario. You have to go through all the other steps and all the other levels before you actually get to fight the different bosses.
Right here, though, there is still this problem that I've had throughout this whole book of there being too many characters.
Oh, exactly.
And there'll be time where a character will speak, and I remember it happening a lot during these scenes, where somebody will do something or say something, and I'll be like, where have they been? Did they leave? I thought they left, I haven't heard from these guys in the last 3 chapters, and all of a sudden they're saying something. There is too many characters in this book.
I will say, I like having a lot of characters, though. One of my favorite fantasy series books that I read was Wheel in Time, and the amount of characters they had in all of those books, there's a lot. And and it's just, I don't know, it's one of those where I don't like how they did the transitions between characters, but I like having a couple different viewpoints more than just 2 or 3 main characters. I like having 4, 5, 6 where you can kind of jump, but you have to have a good transition, which they did not.
Yeah, it's not written well enough to have this many characters. To where it's like, well, we want to have a little spotlight on the dwarf and the kender. How are we going to do that? Well, everybody gets tied up. Why is that? Well, because there's a wicker dragon with a horde of draconians.
Right.
Like, okay.
Right. So everybody escapes, right? Flint gets everybody free while Tasselhoff is talking to everybody through the wicker dragon, and then
he
crashes it and burns.
And again, you see
literally
a la Bug's Life.
and again, you do see that connection and that deep, even though they're kind of constantly crabbing at each other, that deep friendship between Flint and Taz here, because of the fact that as soon as the thing goes down and Taz is stuck inside the thing, who's the one who's freaking out about everything? It's Flint.
Right.
Flint's the one freaking. We gotta get him out of there. We gotta do these stupid candidate.
I do like these love-hate relationships always play well to me. I do like them. But anyway, so they escape this, right? But then they still got to face, I guess this is the end of the module, so we have to face the big bad, right?
Yes.
Right. So we get to Xak Tsaroth, which is a city that was destroyed in this cataclysm. Again, in case you've forgotten, Kryn was destroyed by a cataclysm when what we'll get to in other books, which it's spelled out better. The king priest ends up trying to become a god himself or something like this, and causes this cataclysm to come, destroy everything.
It's essentially the apocalypse.
The apocalypse has
exactly in
happened.
the medieval post-apocalypse.
Post-apocalypse stuff. So the city has been destroyed, and there is this black dragon. His name is Xak, right? And I think he's pretty cool. I guess what I love about him is that instead of breathing fire, this guy breathes like acid. He's like something from Alien, which would have been out at this time. So this black alien with acid blood, or spewing acid. Cool idea. Very cool idea.
That is how black chromatic dragons work.
Right.
They spew acid.
Right.
Red chromatic dragons breathe fire.
Yeah. So it's again holding to this whole D&D what's already groundwork that's already been laid out, right?
Yes.
So there's this well, right? This dragon comes out of the well. He talks, right? Which I wasn't sure up until this point. First time ever reading a Dragonlance novel. Do dragons talk in this universe? I had no idea. And then all of a sudden, this dragon is talking.
Well, and I liked the fact that he talked.
Right.
It wasn't just a telepathy thing to your brain. The actual dragon is up there in front of you forming words.
Forming words and talking.
Yes.
Yeah, which is cool.
Dragons they're old, they're intelligent.
Well, yes.
Right. It should be said, though, at this point, right, that dragons are not something that people on Kryn know about. So they have disappeared. So the fact that there's this black dragon is shocking to the group, right? And I don't even know if they really outline this well in the book. These guys should be losing their stuff right now, that there is a dragon in front of it. It'd be like us walking down the street and seeing, God help us, a centaur. Right? That it's that aspect of where these guys should be really taken back, that there is a dragon here. And it's also a cool concept that's introduced here is the idea of dragon fear. That this dragon has, it causes people to fear them. Yeah, it's this automatic
magic that spews from the dragon that freaks you out because, holy crap, it's a dragon.
Right. Yeah. There's listeners there that have been longtime D&Ders that are like, this guy doesn't know anything. I don't. I am not a D&Der. I am the guy coming in just reading this book and finding this stuff cool. I like this dragon fear element.
And what dragon fear was initially set up as is, one of the things it was initially set up as was it basically gave the DM another aspect to impound upon the players.
Right.
Because when you encounter a dragon in D&D, you automatically have it gives you another excuse to roll your dice.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
It gives you another excuse to roll your dice because now there's dragon fear, so now you have to see if you survive the dragon fear or if you go running into the woods like a little girl. But
I think one of the cool aspects of this book then is where they're going to up it to that kind of next level, and this book does this where I feel it's written at kind of a low level. This is written at that kind of 12-year-old to 15-year-old demographic, but the death or the killing, the dragon ends up killing Riverwind, right?
Okay, so here is where I started talking about this before.
Yeah.
The staff and how it has limitations.
Right.
Until Riverwind's dead.
Yeah.
I went from Riverwind dies, and I'm like, holy cow! This book. Okay, so we got a bunch of characters. We can kill them. I'm feeling kind of like Game of Thrones right now.
We can kill some people down.
Yeah,
we can whittle them down.
I'm feeling good.
But you look at it and you're like, you never thought, wait, this is the Native American priestess. You can't kill the Native American priestess.
Her
lover.
Her lover.
Her lover. Sorry, but yes, you can't kill. These were the two people that everybody was supposed to protect, and now you're just killing one of them.
Well, and I'm thinking here, I'm sitting here going, I've been complaining the whole time. There's way too many characters. Yeah, let's start killing them. And killing them gross, right? He gets burnt into this. I can imagine, as a 12-year-old, imagining this disgusting, toxic Avengers. Yeah. He's just, all burnt and mangled, his little hand up and everything, because he got dumped on with this toxic acid, and then Xak ends up leaving. The dragon leaves, and they're there to have to mourn and pick up the disturbing remains of Riverwind. And I'm okay with this. Yeah. I'm like, hey, kill him off. He was one too many anyway. I didn't think you already have Caramon, who is your barbarian. Yes. Why do you got this other barbarian named Riverwind? Well, you got to keep him around, I guess, for the love. So here we've got this staff that can, I guess, do it. Can't fix a concussion, but can, when dumped on by acid,
we needed that concussion because that concussion gave him the vision.
It's all just convenient plot contrivances. Again, I feel it's people just throwing fantasy elements into a soup. We're just gonna try to string it together. It's like some sort of a Christmas wreath where we're putting popcorn and we're putting this and just kind of throwing it on the tree.
By all means, why can't we reanimate the guy who was melted by acid?
And I'm right back in Darken Wood, like, oh, okay, something really cool. And then all of a sudden I'm watching, Marvel's Avengers Civil War, and there are no stakes in this.
Yeah, nobody dies.
Nobody
can die.
Nobody dies. I don't need to worry about anybody dying. And honestly, at this point, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. I don't like this book, and I'm just reading it because we are gonna make a podcast.
right.
That is where Luke is sitting right here at this point in the book.
I think I remember this moment at work, walking into Luke's office and being like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it.
Do we have to do a whole trilogy?
Do we have to read all 3 of them? Can we just start them on the trilogy? Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you, Luke.
Either that or it is the aspect too, and I can speak to this from games, where you've gone up to fight the big baddie, or you've gone up to fight the monster, and you rolled the 1.
Yeah.
And this was a total, but on Riverwind's part, this was the total, I went up to beat up the bad guy, I rolled a 1, I got melted by acid. Okay, DM's got to figure out a way to bring me back. DM's got to figure out a way to bring me back. DM's got to figure out a way to bring me back.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the dragon goes, Riverwind is healed, and Goldmoon ends up healing Riverwind, and we find out there's these discs of Mashakal that need to be stolen from the dragon's lair, right? And so they end up going deeper into Xak Tsaroth and finding this group of people who live in Xak Tsaroth called the Gully Dwarves.
Oh, the Gully Dwarves.
And they're Dwarves. Okay, thoughts on these Gully. I'm going to start off this topic on the Gully Dwarves by saying, again, like Darken Wood, where you have really cool aspects with these, these ghost warriors, and then you throw in stupid things like centaurs and the last unicorn, right? You have Xak Tsaroth, which is a destroyed city. It's got draconians in it. It's got a dragon in it. Granted, they must have just arrived there or something recently. I don't know. Again, haven't read the backstory. All right, I'm talking about this book right here. I feel books need to be able to interpret themselves without reading all these backstories. Gully Dwarves, to me, although again, like a Kender, is a good kind of comic relief. When I'm reading about these guys and their high bulb or whatever leader, I'm like, these people would all be dead. I don't know how this society even lives. Like, everybody is an idiot in this group.
All I'm seeing with the Gully Dwarves is I am seeing. Do you remember Fraggle Rock?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
All I'm seeing are like dirty little garbage Fraggle.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yes.
This is the dumb. Get rid of these people.
Yeah.
Your name is not Beeboop.
Yeah. Can I just Boo Boo? What?
Bapu?
Bapu?
I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I don't.
We've
know.
gone with all these names. We're naming these cities weird things. We've met all these we've met 500 people. Where this is Ross, the legendary barkeep of the Lost Tavern in the Solace nightlife. And now we have Bebop.
Bebop and Rocksteady.
This is where the DM just got really tired of coming up with really nice names, and they just went, Bebop. Whatever, let's keep going.
Oh, who's Bapu's leader? I don't know. Fudge?
Let's go. Let's keep
high
going.
bulb. This is the dumbest stuff ever. But at our darkest hour, when Luke is about ready to call it quits, I'm hating on this book. There is, for me, a personal high point where we get to this pot elevator that they have, okay?
That was really cool.
Where this whole idea of there's this giant boiling pot that is guarded by draconians, and they need to get to the lower level, and it goes down to the lower level, and they need to fight their way through this contraption. That part was cool. I am not a Dungeons and Dragons player. I could hear 20-sided dice rolling. I'm like, this is totally, a contrivance for the game. This happens. This has to happen in one of those games.
And you're rolling. you're rolling to hit, you're rolling dexterity to simply stand in
Right.
banging down the shaft.
You have a way for there to constantly be numbers arriving and arriving.
Exactly.
I felt like a video game like this. This thing could be lowering and going up and down, and constantly draconians are coming out of it, and you have to fight through them all. Like, this has a very game quality to it.
Yes.
I'm okay with it, though. After the low point, I felt we descended into the ruined cataclysm of this place. I descended into the ruined cataclysm of this book. I was like, oh my God, I
that
can't.
was beautiful.
I can't get out of this. And this elevator lifted my spirits.
Yeah, and you know
this
what?
is much better.
I'm hating on the book a little bit, but the Gully Dwarves are kind of cute and silly.
Right.
I feel there could have been such a better race or a better explanation of the Gully Dwarves. Like you said, they're dirty, they live in trash, they don't really eat anything.
Right.
They're dead.
Yeah.
There's no reason they were kept. The Draconians kept them as slave labor, but they're lazy, fat little things that wander around. You don't have lazy, fat little slaves.
Right. If this was going to be turned into a book, if I was back in the into a movie, and I was back in the 1980s, Jim Henson would be doing this. This would be just like Labyrinth. This would be like The Dark Crystal, where you'd have kind of cool moments and then kind of silliness with puppets and everything like that, and it would work, and we'd all love it, and it'd be an instant classic. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm okay with Gully Dwarves when I have this 80s mentality of like, it's a fun romp through weirdness.
Gully Dwarves are just the minions of the 1980s.
Right, yes, they are, exactly.
I was pissed. I was so upset that they kept... Because once we finished the elevator scene, and once we went through this, they keep coming with him, and they keep coming up, and I'm like, okay, just let them go. Let them stop at that scene.
Right. And then Boo Boo falls in love with Raistlin, which is there for no point other than to try to give Raistlin some sort of human moment, and Raistlin just comes off as a jerk, which let's bring up Raistlin. Let's go deeper into his character. I'm hearing Raistlin is a fan favorite. People love Raistlin. They think he is the greatest character ever. I never connected with this guy. I didn't like him at all. I didn't trust him. And I'm going to... Tell me what you guys think of this. I'm going to put it this way. I feel that if you read these books when you were a teenager, Raistlin's going to resonate with you hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
Because Raistlin is that angsty, nobody understands me.
Because I'm so smart.
Yeah, he even comes off as sometimes, people be like, why are you reading that? Why do you want that book? It's coming up right here when he gets Fistandangelus's book. Like, why do you want that power? He's like, you don't understand me! Like, he gets this whole,
Raistlin in 2010 would have totally had the bangs. He would have constantly been flipping over his shoulder out of his eyes, and with the black nail polish and just I'm smarter than all of you.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're this angsty teen reading this book, Raistlin is going to be your guy. Coming to it as a late 30s dad, I'm a Tanis guy, and being like, shut up, Raistlin. Okay. And you're whining.
You know what? Being the kid in 2012 with the bangs and the black fingernail polish, I wouldn't say I relate to Raistlin, but I put up with him. I tolerate him. On the other hand, think Tanis is an insufferable douche.
Yes, because he is the dad figure. He is the dad figure.
I don't know.
No, I don't know if he's the dad.
Sturm is the dad.
I don't know if he's
I think Sturm is the ideologue, where he is like cutting the very straight path that nobody can really
nobody
hold
can
up
do
to.
it. Nobody can do it.
Yeah.
Cameron,
he's the pastor's kid that's with your group, that's like really holding you to like the strong moral code, and
but you like him and you trust him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I just think, and I liked the whole, again, like I said earlier, I liked the dichotomy between the twins.
Right.
Between Caramon
so good.
and Raistlin.
I think it's the best written stuff as far as character development in the book.
I like the two sides of the same coin idea between them, and especially as we learn stuff later on too. But I like that symbiotic relationship, and we start to see things about, and we start to learn stuff in here in book one about things that Caramon has given up in his life. Right. Because he has to take care of his brother.
Correct.
Right. And Caramon's undying love for his brother made me a whole lot more sympathetic to Raistlin as a character.
Right, and this is why I don't blame Hickman and Weiss on this. These guys are writing this beholden to the game modules. They have to get all these guys in. I'll tell you, after this book, they have to cut ties with the game modules, and they're free to do whatever they want. I'll tell you, they finish out this trilogy. They go to the next trilogy, which is Legends. They know that Raistlin and Caramon are what you want to hear about. That's what that Legends trilogy is about. It's relationship of Raistlin and Caramon. It's the best stuff in this book. It's what the next trilogy is about. So I don't fault the authors for having to throw all this other kind of needless stuff, I guess, in here.
I will give Luke credit for making me be a lot more sympathetic toward Raistlin too, is Luke, Paul, and I are actually currently involved in a campaign with how many of us? There are 14 of us right now that are playing in that campaign.
We have a regular old Dragonlance party.
Which we are playing a 3.5 D&D campaign that we've been playing for the last year and a half.
Right.
Luke plays, we call him the Glass Cannon, because he's he's a very powerful mage who he can't take a hit.
Gosh, no.
He can't take like a hit to himself, but he will blow everybody up. And so that's your D&D character.
Yep.
In our campaign is a lot of what I saw in my head when I was picturing Raistlin, and actually a kind of a takeoff of your of your Thorm character was Caramon.
Caramon and Thorm that is why I liked Caramon. I also enjoyed Flint a lot, similar aspects because of the character I've already played, where he's a big old tank who's not the brightest.
Correct.
But man, is he fun to play.
Yes.
Well, hopefully everybody listening knows what D&D is all about. Because we are now devolving into character profiles from D&D games. But I do like in Chapter 19 that we get an actual swear word. From
is that the first one?
Gully Dwarf swear. Gulp Fudger.
Ooh, I'm going to use that one.
So you can start using Gulp Fudger out there. But anyway, so we do also learn in here, we get kind of, I guess, insinuations about the actual big bad here, which is High Lord Verminard.
Yes.
Which is, I guess, the guy that needs to be defeated in
And again,
one.
what a lazy name.
Yeah.
We've come up with all of this stuff for this day. What should we call these guys? He's real vermin.
Vermin.
Verminard.
Yeah,
and we'll put two A's next to each other. That way it'll look fancy.
Yeah, and see, and I can't help but seeing, and this is really for me going to come out in the final fight at the end of this book. But yeah, this is fantasy. Of course, you're going to call him like High Lord or something, but Lord Verminard. I can't help but think the largest science fiction trilogy has just come out. Finished its thing a year ago, Star Wars, and this is Lord Vader.
Okay.
I mean, he's wearing black, he's got a black cape, he's got a death's head mask. I mean, this guy is the fantasy Lord Vader. And just like the first Star Wars movie, these guys were told that this first book needed to be standalone in case nobody liked it, and this was all they had. So this needed to be one little arc, and we're going to fight Vader at the end of it. I mean, if you're going to throw everything out there, you're going to have a black-clad Death's helmet, Darth Vader, at the end of this. And that's who Verminard is to me. But anyway, they go to this Highbulp, who has a useless map that he says he can get to the back of Takesis's lair to get these discs of Meshakal. Okay, I started tuning out in some of this stuff.
Yeah.
What is the point of these discs? What even becomes of these? I mean, they're looking for these discs. They're told the discs are important.
Is it wrong that every time the discs were mentioned, or they mentioned some mythical properties of the golden discs, I immediately went to Mormonism?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay. Let's. This is a perfect place to bring it out. Tracy Hickman, in all of his annotation, comes out very blatantly as saying that he is a strong Mormon.
Oh, seriously? Oh,
you nailed it. You nailed it, Club. He is a very strong Mormon.
I totally went to, they're going to get these discs, and only one person is going to be able to read them, and nobody else is going to, and maybe it'll be through a hat.
I feel that the discs go away. They never come back after this book, I believe.
There is a little bit in book 2.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, and I don't ever get a sense of what these are supposed to be for. I do feel this is definitely Tracy taking from his own.
They do. There's a little bit of talk, and it's kind of how they. And I might be pulling this from book 2. It's how what's his name? Elliston.
Yes.
It's how he kind of learns to become a cleric of Paladine.
Oh, and I got stuff to say when we get there about this Elliston guy. But no. And throughout this, there's naming structures. Even as we get into the other books, there's names of towns and stuff like that are directly from the Bible. And there's structures to some of this that are definitely allusions to Christian spirituality. I'm not going to fault the book for that at all, but it definitely comes through. I was with you, Claude, as soon as I read it, but I knew reading this and reading the annotations as I went the first time. These are Mormon tablets.
And I feel like this section too is a little bit of lazy DMing.
Yeah.
There's a magical trap door in the bottom of the safe. What?
Right.
Convenient. Like, what kind of crappy dragon security does he have going here if in the bottom of if there's a door that you can open in the bottom of his vault and he has no idea?
Yeah.
Okay, so they get this. This whole chapter 19, is weighed down by this stupid. I'm sorry, this is my opinion. Stupid romance between Rivermoon, Lovewind.
Rivermoon, Lovewind.
These guys just they're just. When you see two teenagers standing in a hallway in a school, just looking at each other into their eyes, just spewing meaningless crap at each other, this is what these two characters do to me. When these guys, Weiss and Hickman, write love scenes, oh man, I wonder, did they do this to their significant others? Because it is over the top and just ridiculous.
They're very contrived. They're very contrived, and I will give you that. It kind of made this scene, this idea of this love scene here, it did kind of make them more or less. It did kind of make them less of static characters.
Right.
Rather than just being the noble savages in the background.
Right.
It did at least give a little bit of like, okay, we're going to play with the class system here because you're from a warrior class and I'm from the royal class, and that's why there was an issue with our love. And, okay, I can see how you're playing with that, but you're right. The writing is absolutely atrocious.
Right. Okay, so let's end this first part. The first half of this book ends with your final module fight, right?
Yes.
The final Takesis battle. They enter the lair. The dragon casts his spell of darkness. I like this, though. There's like, in my mind, again, things are kind of happening fast. Maybe I'm speed reading through this part, but Raistlin's like gets pinned onto an altar underneath the dragon's claw, like the dragon's holding him down and kind of talking smack to everybody else in the group, right? Something like that. And he's trying to get the blue staff, right? He's using Raistlin's life to barter for the blue staff. I kind of like this part. At the same time, there's weird things that happen here with Goldmoon. Again, this magic staff of hers can just do anything it wants.
Yeah, this was, me already having issues with Rivermoon. Gosh, you guys got me going. Riverwind.
Goldmoon, Lovewind.
Goldmoon, Lovewind. With my already existing issues, I had a little bit of fun with reading about the Gully Dwarves. Was kind of really trying not to barf during the Rivermoon Goldmoon love part there. And then this battle starts happening. Raistlin's pinned down. He might die. And then Goldmoon sacrifices herself, I guess, using the staff. In my head, like, I'm being pulled back in. I'm being tricked. I'm being pulled back in.
Yeah,
Like,
you're thinking she's dead. I'm thinking that she's dying now.
Either Raistlin's gonna. I'm like, oh my god, Raistlin's gonna die.
Right.
Oh my god, Goldmoon died. And I swear to God, if she comes back to life and they go back upstairs and she's just fine, and I'm like, okay.
It was, but it was that whole thing again where I could see the DM working and the DM going, oh, she rolled a 1, I had to kill her.
Right.
But God, I don't want to go through the time of watching.
Okay, and here's me coming at it. I'm just reading this book, and those of you who had read all the backstory, I am just a person reading this for enjoyment. I don't even know, like, where did she come from? I thought she was dead, and all of a sudden she's there. There's portions of this writing where it's like, I don't know if it doesn't lend itself to all entering the brain because it's so disjointed in its style, but I'm like, wait, Goldmoon's back. like where'd you go? She just died.
Goldmoon's back. And her staff is gone. It's a part of a statue now.
I don't even know. There's parts of this, I don't even know what happened. And I know there's probably people throwing their phones and screaming at their speakers as to what happened. I'm telling you, if you're just a layperson picking this book up off the shelf, there are things here that happen that you're just like.
And during this whole confrontation, when the dragon has Raistlin underneath its claws, Raistlin's setting up to do like this big, kamikaze explode himself spell and take out the dragon. And all of a sudden, Goldmoon's telepathic.
Yeah, and see, I don't want paragraphs of backstory of people explaining. I don't want paragraphs of backstory of people explaining what happened here. The writers have done a bad job.
This book should be self-contained.
It should be self-contained, like anything else. You come to this book, everything needs to be explained within its pages. You shouldn't need to go to game modules. You shouldn't have to read online content. You shouldn't have to read backstories. If I'm not getting it from this chapter, you failed. You failed at this one.
Yeah.
Game over. And at the end of this, there are cool aspects to this final fight. The whole place starts caving in. They all have to flee, right?
Which is exciting.
Which is exciting. All of this is Indiana Jones-ish. It's cool. They're fleeing the collapsing temple. It's great. But then it leaves me. This book splits into two parts. What they call Book 1 and Book 2 of
Book 1.
Of Book 1. And this end of Book 1, again, I have no idea. They decide to go back to Solace.
Why not?
These characters have no direction. They're meandering around Kryn with they're bumbling idiots. I don't understand what any of them are doing.
But now they've got discs.
Now they have
They have
discs.
discs. They completed their mission.
So why not?
Tanis is from Solace.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm like, well, they got the discs. They don't know what to do. Let's go home.
Yeah,
but to me,
and that's the thing. Is they had all lived in Solace.
Right.
Yeah.
They had all lived in Solace before they went on their 5-year excursion.
And to me, this is the failure of the structure of this book. Is you are setting up this epic struggle. Dragons have returned to Kryn. The gods are coming back. There's this dark goddess that is controlling them. Right. This is epic. Towns are falling. People are dying. Right. And you have a group of freaking crazy amounts of heroes. Right. That are on some sort of mission that you don't understand, and still, by the end of chapter 22, have no idea what they're doing and are just like, I'll go home. Like, this to me is failure of writing 101, and this is because they're holding to these Dungeons and Dragons. To me, it's because they're holding to writing a game module that they have to reset to 0. They have to start back at the tavern. If you're a D&D fan and have played a lot, you're going to forgive this. And if you're coming to this just for a novel, this to me is unforgivable. This is just, you're at chapter 22, your characters are directionless. They don't even know what the mission is.
They are. They're directionless. They don't know what the mission is. But again, that is a D&D thing. Is what do you do when you don't know where else to go?
Go to a tavern.
You go to the bar.
That might have to be the name of this episode, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. It's a D&D thing. Because if you're not a big D&D fan and have the comfortableness or the familiarity of these are like the campaigns I play, this is like the fun times I have with my friends, if you're coming at this looking for a nice tight plot and storyline, holy crap, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of problems with what happens in this. And I can see how some people are going to give this an extremely high review and other people are going to have a lot of problems with this. So,
but even having a lot of problems with it, I did still enjoy Book 1 of Book 1.
Book 1 of Book 1.
Dragons of Autumn Twilight.
And I will say I enjoyed this one too. We'll see at the end what our final reviews are for this. But that so far is the end of Book 1 of the Dragons of Autumn Twilight. All right, well, we have gone long on this one, so we are going to split this one, I think, into 2 parts. So
we're gonna have to. This one's getting a little long here, but I mean, I'm enjoying this. We're diving into this. We're really getting to the meat of what this book is about and what our gripes are and what we love about it. I mean, this is awesome. But hey, I think it's kind of time to settle up our tab and get out of here.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, hey, come back and join us for part 2 of this review.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hey, pretty much, so what you doing after this?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dungeons and Dweebs. There's even more adventuring to be had on our website, dungeonsanddweebs.com. We would love to hear from you. You can email us at dungeonsanddweebspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find Dungeons and Dweebs on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find all of those links and more at dungeonsanddweebs.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help spread the word by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. The music for Dungeons & Dweebs is Final Fight by Royalty Free Kings and can be found at their website, royaltyfreekings.com. Dungeons & Dweebs is a Tim Gilbert media production, copyright 2017, all rights reserved, and no part of the show can be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the expressed written consent of Tim Gilbert Media Incorporated.